So you're standing in what was once the dragon's mouth, mostly now smashed to pieces, and you can see all around you there's like works going on to try and rebuild it, and that's echoed in all of Gundabad. They're trying to rebuild the things that were destroyed in the invasion and the ensuing fights. And there's still, on like the lower levels and some of the upper levels, there's still fighting going on as they're trying to clear out all of the orcs and everything they can manage to find. But you're standing here now, and there's this great pile, this horde of things that have been assembled, these ancient items that have been taken from all parts of the castle and like piled together and laid out on this great oaken table, ancient in its design. There are 9 things that have been arrayed here. And there's a number of orcs, several of whom are just like sifting through the pile and like scribbling down, like picking up a thing and like appraising it. Some of them have like those jewelers sort of magnifying eyes and like looking quite closely at the gems, or like biting on coins and things. And there's like this team of them, obviously assessors or whatever, making sure that everything is taken down, every note is taken of every piece of wealth here. But Thorin and Gurney, 2 dwarven kings, are like standing, looking between the wealth and you. And Thorin will say, "A great deal of wealth here." And he'll like look at the huge hoard and then like the 9 items that they've filtered through to like offer to you. This is your share. We've chosen quite carefully. I'm sure you understand that there are some things here in this mountain that are deeply precious to our people. These things, and he'll gesture at like the arrayed, shining and beautiful items, are of mannish and elvish design, and not so precious to us. And this victory, we know, is in large part because of you, and so we have these things to offer you. And he'll like point in the direction of the table, and you can see what lies before you. The first is this bow, seemingly made of white wood, with like an eagle feather at each tip. And it's strung with like this golden string that on closer inspection seems to be elven hair. And he would say our assessors have told us that it was made by an elvish crafter, Celebrimbor by name. And I like look at it with this eye that's like, it's okay, I guess, as he like looks at one of the finest things ever crafted. It's not dwarven, so he's not so impressed. He'll like walk down the table a little bit, and he'll like lift up this dagger with all these like nicks along the blade, so many that it almost looks serrated. This one, they tell me, is called Kirmegil, the cleaver of swords. And he'll like put it back down. He'll go down the line. Basically, there's this beautiful spear with like a Ithilnar and Mithril tip. There's this suit of plate mail that's like placed, like the breastplate, the bracers, the gauntlets, all of it sort of like in a pile. And it's almost alarmingly bright to look at. It's shining. Gold, mithril, silver, various sort of lanes and different like colors like weaved into the thing. This is the armor of our Farazan, he says, and like a bunch of the people and the dwarves around will like stop what they're doing and like look for a moment and then go back to their work, and like uncomfortable with that idea. And he'll move swiftly past that one. He'll like pick up this helm, vaguely in the shape, so this hood, like embroidered with these eyes, these like circular eyes, and there are 2 sort of pointed ears. And he will say that this is Gurthdur, Cowl of Owls. Next is a shield with a wolf emblazoned upon it. And he'll say this is Wolf Turner. There's this armoring, beautiful and golden, of ancient days of Numenor. He says it's the armoring of Tar Minister. There's a beautiful Numenorian shield in the shape of a sail. And then there's this ruin, this piece of mithril, maybe Ithilnor, various like metals, this ruined sort of crown type thing. It doesn't look as fine as the rest, although the materials are amazing. The actual item itself is like ruined and broken. And he'll look to you, all of you, and just incline his head.
Cynric looks around at those arrayed items before him, or them, and the dwarves, and he got that sense of uncomfortableness when they mentioned Al-Farazon, though. I'm not sure he shared that. I'm not sure he knows, maybe, what that really means. So I think he steps forward and starts to assess various pieces, perhaps like the fine lance and the armor and the wolf shield. And then I think his hand rests finally on the broken fragment of something that was once so fine, is now wrought ruin. He goes to look, he looks around at any of the elves present.
So Thranduil still hasn't been seen. He went all fury and rage into the mountain and hasn't been seen since. It's well over a week now at this stage that he hasn't been seen. He's gone in there in some sort of battle rage, slaughter fury into the mountain. Hasn't been seen since. Eladan has been heartbroken, has been standing and staring out into space, devastated at the loss of his brother. So Arwen is here. She too has been seen more often than not crying. She's been through a lot in this last year, losing Aragorn and now her brother.
Up.
Go.
So while Lloyd is frozen, Beregond excitedly runs forward after showing a moment's pause in respect for the emotions of the other people. He first almost starts running and skipping, picking up one item after another and just turning them over in his hands, saying the Kiri Megil, the cleaver of swords. This was lost by Meligor the Black back in the 11th or 12th centuries. So it was said. It has not been seen in Arnor, and it fell into the hands of the Witch King, and so it ended here. And this, but how did the armor of Ar-Pharazôn get here? Is this the armor that he cannot be the armor that he wore into the west? He says, but it is fine make. It is the work of Numenor, and he moves from one item to the next until he finally arrives at the white wood bow, which he just strokes with his finger. Oh, I curse the day I lost my eye. This is the fight. I don't need to say it. It was made by Kellen Brimbor, the maker of the rings. And he just somewhat wistfully pulls it back full range and looks along it as though trying to remember what it was like when he could see with both eyes. And there's a moment of surprise comes into his face, and he looks round at Faroth and at Cynric and says, "Do either of you have a arrow?"
Quick as a flash, Faroth's hand goes to his quiver at his back and rolls a black feathered Dunedain arrow to you and gives a smile.
And he takes it and measures it and puts it in his hand and looks first at a target 30 feet away, and then he first looks at a door frame 30 feet away, and then he moves slightly to the left, aiming out of the door over at a hanging lantern 60 feet away, and looses the arrow at the hanging lantern, and I'm going to see how he does. He's aiming for an armor class 20 to try and knock out the flame. And he, yep. The arrow flies and snuffs the flame in the lantern on the other side of the breaks the shield and snuffs out the flame in that lantern. It says, nobody. I have not been able to use a bow since I lost my eye, but the magic of Celebrimbor, the craft of Celebrimbor, is better than an eye. I can use a bow again.
You can hear swearing from the room where you like put out the lantern. You can hear a dwarf like as he's like trying to like look at some jewels, and he like grumpily like, goes and relights it.
I'm glad we can now rely on your aim instead of mine, Baragond. Parath gives you like a nod as he reaches down to the table. The first thing he actually puts his hand upon is the armband, wreathed with emeralds and mithril and Numenorian patterns. And he looks upon it, and Lloyd, would he recognize that this was borne by a Dunedain that he might have heard of, or?
Maybe. You give me a history.
Would Baragond know?
Baragond is more likely to know. You can give me a history, or is it lore in this?
Either, but Baragond can tell me. That's fine.
Yep. Baragond says, Baragond watches you eyeing it with a slightly jealous expression on his face, and says, "My king, that is an arm ring of a king, Ta Minastir, he was the 11th king of Numenor, ruling for 138 years in the Second Age. And it is said to to carry the powers of miracles, that armband. It doesn't suit you," he says.
Faroth just gives you like a very, very wry kind of look, and then sort of deliberately puts it on, like, and he makes you watch. And he says, there have been many special relics and trinkets that have been passed down through the line of my people. I am proud to wear this. And with that, he also picks up the owl cowl. I like to think that it's got part of a cloak as well. So you can see it's got black feathers and kind of silver streaks that run through it. And he swings it around himself and attaches it and pulls it so he can just try it out.
As you put on the armband, you can see like Baragond joking that it doesn't suit you, but you can see that that's not really a joke. That maybe he really wants it. Like you can see just like that the truth behind the joke.
It doesn't suit you.
Yeah, Faroth. is keenly aware of this now, thanks to that particular trinket. But he pays it no mind. He sort of thinks, well, Baragon just loves his lore and his artifacts of history. He's not ever going to get all of them, he thinks to himself.
Rick holds up the fragment of mithril, the bejeweled broken crown. Do you know of this, Aragon? And he's kind of like curious over it.
The crown. It is.
You would know that it was once called Sea Star or Geargale in Sindarin.
Oh, hang on. No, I haven't found my notes on it.
So I can tell you.
Yeah, go on.
It would have been a crown of this beautiful sort of bluish lane and mithril, worn by an elven king, long forgotten. It's a fine make, and you think it's maybe slightly heartbroken to see it ruined like this. Like, it looks like it was like slashed in half or like deliberately broken by an orc. Like they might have tried it on and like felt the burn of the mithril or like the rejection of that item, and like destroyed it in a rage. That there's still, you feel like glory and magic there.
Do you think we could see it remade again? There's something about it.
Thorn will give you like an appraising look. He says he has his arms folded as you guys are like looking at the treasures, like trying to see who'll pick what. Watching carefully, and he'll see that you went to that first, and will like raise an eyebrow. You have a good sense of wealth, Cynric, elf friend. There's greatness there in that metal.
Do you think could be repurposed, given life, by your smiths or those of the elves? And he kind of like looks over, and they, at the said and sorry state that the collective elves are in.
Thorin will kind of like think, though Gurney will say they have begun eating the forges here, ancient forges that would have made artifacts of Durin, the Deathless, in elder days. If there's anywhere in Middle-earth that can forge these metals, it is here. And he'll deliberately not mention Eregion, which is where all of the finest things are made, where the elves do their crafting. He'll keep that one on the down low, and he'll mention that these forges are the finest. And he'll say, I think it's possible. And I think it would be a shame to see these fine, shining metals go to waste. And there's like a look in his eye, that dwarfish look, that sort of snake-like or worm-like shimmer in his eyes.
Baragon reaches down for the dagger. Countless nicks and scratches on its black alloy blade. Running his finger along the sharp edge. Says, "This must be Kirmergil, the cleaver of swords, forged in the times of old Arnor to fight against the orcs and to defend against them. It's got a good balance." And his eyes stray over to the to the armband again, but then he looks down at Kirmagil and smiles, tossing it up and down in his hand.
Faroth,
It will work well in your defense, my lord.
Faroth he's walking down, appraising the rest of the finery before them, and his eyes rests upon an ancient Numenorian shield, and he remembers him rushing into the dragon's mouth, and a servant of Sauron drawing a blade so finely and so sharp and so quick that it carved his very throat open. That would have been a time that a shield would have been useful. And perhaps now the make of his ancestors will protect him as he slings it over his shoulder.
Gurney will approach you, Cynric, and he'll maybe you're holding one of the fragments. He'll pick up the other and look at it appraisingly, almost longingly, and turn it around as he looks at it. We can reforge this.
Cynric looks down at him, hopefully. Hopeful. I already wear a crown. Do you think I could, have it set into something? Have it always with me? And he kind of looks around, on his person almost.
Yeah, Greeny does the same. He looks up at the ridiculous golden dragon helm, and then we'll see the rest of your gear quite plain in comparison. There's not enough here for a suit of armor. And his eyes will land on your axe, that we could coat that blade, give it a mithril edge, infuse some of it into the handle.
Cynric looks down at the humble Rohirrim axe, wooden hafted and well made by Rohan standards, but we're a long way from Rohan. He slides it out, I think, of the ring that it kept on the side of his belt. It's seen many an orc slain, even a ring wraith or a Numenorian here and there. And he kind of offers it, or holds it out so Gurney can inspect the blade, and it goes, "It survived the Witch King. I felt it. It shook in my hand, and he destroyed other weapons. But this blade did not break. Perhaps it would be worthy."
Look at it, and you say, it's humble, though well made. We could put some runes on it of mithril. Looks at the blade. He looks at the amount of metal, and you can see him doing calculations in his head. A blade like that, an axe that survived such things, should be fine. Should have a fine name.
The crown was called Sea Star, was it not? I may be one of the few horsemen to have rode the sea.
You certainly made everybody else see stars on the sea as well.
Saw the sea real up close.
I would keep that name as a reminder of the
Sea Star.
horsemen of the sea.
He nods. You'll have to come with us and forge it. Would only be right.
He looks to the other two. I'm sure it won't be too long. And I think they've already had taken the items that was of interest to them on the table. But he kind of, I think, almost like to Baragon's dismay, probably almost like unceremoniously goes and like over and just kind of like heaps together, you know, like that puts the things on the shield and just like picks up the spear, the shield, and the armor. I'll see you in a few, an hour or two.
Gurney chuckles at that.
Can I come and watch you working the forges, Master Dwarf?
He's about to say no, but then he realizes like the sacrifice that you made and the rest of you have made, and you see it's his instinct to just say no. No one gets to see the forges. He's offering it to Sinner because he's making the weapon, and then he rethinks it and says, "Of course."
As much as I would be amiss to not see such craftsmanship, I have business before we leave for your homeland. I must find Erlander.
And Baragon suddenly looks affected and reaches out his hand and gives Farrell's arm a little squeeze, and then turns back to turns back to, is it Thorin or who was the dwarf who was offering?
Gurney Firebeard.
Gurney. Yeah.
So then the two of you with Gurney and several of his house guards will like make your way through this dragon face, this head, this enormous cavern, down to the lower levels of Gundabad. It'll take you maybe 30 or so minutes to get there. And you'll hear, well in advance of that, the ringing and the burning, this insane. As you kind of get close, you can see these massive chambers, like hundreds and hundreds of feet, ceilings high and wide, and these insane contraptions, this enormous forge on each end of the huge hall, and smaller ones dotted throughout. Anvils and hammers and like powered hammers that are powered by some dwarfish contraption. You can see like many of the dwarves are here like fitting chains and like moving these strange like water devices that will use weight to. It's all very scientific and all very dwarfish, and very hard to understand, I think, for men as you make your way through. Though there is a section that is ready for work. There's this enormous furnace, and the heat of it, even as you're standing 30 feet away, is unbelievable. And you can see this bright white fire inside. And Gurney will like approach, and there'll be this like smith, bald with a great long beard that's like plaited into a sort of rope that he has tucked into his belt. He's like rippling with these ridiculous muscles, although he looks hundreds of years old, and he wears this like thick leather apron, though he's covered in sweat from the heat. And he'll like incline his head to the king, and then look up at the two of you, confused as to why there are men here. Gurney will like quickly explain what's to be done, and he'll nod, and he'll just hold out his hand for the axe.
And I proffer it, and the fragment that I hold.
With no ceremony whatsoever, he'll like take the axe and a hammer, and will like hammer the wood out of it. It'll splinter sort of the top as he like rips it out, basically, of the axe head, which he will like cling onto an anvil. He'll then take the various pieces of metal and he'll like get a tongs and like place them into the forge as well as the axe head. And then there'll be like a team of them who will come together and like smash them like in this insane dance of hammers, like a perfect circle of them, so that the maximum amount of hammering is done in the shortest amount of time. It's unbelievably efficient, sort of almost magical in the way that they're doing it. And they will then basically take the two pieces of metal, your axe head and these strange mithril bits, and like hammer them together, and then they'll fold them, put them back into the forge, bring them out, stretch them out, fold them again, over and over again. For hours they'll do this until finally there's this like piece of metal that is a perfect combination of the two. They've extracted during this process like the pieces of gold somehow through some dwarf craft, and the other pieces of like colored metal, and they have those separate. And they as that's basically being done and they're drawing out the blade itself, one of them hands you a hammer and says, "This time when it comes out, you hit after I hit."
Note nods. I mean, he's been in the forged fires of Rohan, but nothing compared to this. And I suppose he unforged an artifact of Sauron, so upon an elven smithy.
He did.
So he stands, sweating profusely, I imagine, ready, waiting for his call.
And you can see Gurney has like rolled up his sleeves and has a hammer as well, and he's like standing ready. And they bring it out this time, and there's this like, and then it comes to you, and you can like smash the hammer down, maybe slightly off time, and then Gurney and back around to you. And as it continues, I think Cynric is like capable and would be able to find the rhythm of the insane speed at which they hit the metal and like draw it out. The piece of wood they're going to try and rescue as best they can, though it doesn't look great. And one of them will say to you, "We've better wood than that here."
He says, "Find it, and I shall wield it. Though if you can keep..." And I imagine on like the end of the handle, there's like maybe like a carved horse head or something on the tip. Either if you could keep and cap the new wood with that, or I could see to crafting a new head perhaps for a new haft.
He'll nod and he'll like take an axe and like sever the bottom piece of the old haft in like a single strike, and he'll take this new almost white wood from a pile in the corner, and through various dwarfish crafts will like combine the two and like wrap leather and then linen around the haft. The blade itself has now been completed, and you can see the first smith, the bald one, with like this little chisel, and he's like carving runes into the blade and then inlaying with tongs like the molten gold and then the molten like ithilnor and the other metals into the runic shapes. And at this stage, it's over a couple of hours and you're pouring with sweat. And finally, they like take the axe head as it has cooled, and they place it onto the top of the wood, and they like brace it in a vice, and they need somebody to hammer it down, and that's going to be you.
So I think like he looks from the boldsmith to Gurney and gets the idea of what is to come, and he I imagine like he's stripped down to the waist himself at this point, lest he collapse with exhaustion. And he begins similarly. Maybe Baragon sees that the surprising amount of musculature that is always covered by various forms of ragtag armor. But he is a strong man, and now it shows. in this feat of pure strength. As the hammer raises, hammer falls. And the time passes. Feels like an aeon, I'm sure.
Yeah, by the end of it, you're breathing heavily, although the bald dwarf will like clap you heartily on the back with encouragement, like you've done a good job or like a passable job, because he's a dwarf and that's how they talk. So you would just kind of say, "Adequate, lad," and you'll like hammer the blade down onto the haft. It has been like the horse head has been attached to the bottom, but also they have like with gold placed the Rohirric symbol onto the axe blade itself, and there are several runes along the blade, and it shines in the firelight now of mithril, of Rohirric steel, and various other metals. This fine alloy, and the axe is forged.
He manages a smile towards the dwarf. Now, having spent plenty of time with them, he knows that he wasn't going to get more than that. And I guess the blade is quenched and detailed and returned to his hand, and he still holds it. There is no tremor, despite all the labor. Holding this axe is as natural as it's riding a horse to him. And he looks with pride on the new sea star.
Yeah, the weight is the same, thankfully, though you know the blade is of finer quality. It feels familiar, like home.
Aragon stands up to get a closer look and sort of reaches out his hand to see if he can have a look.
Absolutely. I'm sure he like pulls... He thanks the dwarves, thanks Gurney, and like pulls away from the fireside, like to within a safe distance, 30 feet or more, and leaves the door to their craft. And I imagine he passes it over to you while he... Maybe there's like... You said there was like water run machines. I imagine there's water channels or something, and he splashes himself while you...
And as he turns it in his hand, admiring it, Baragon says, "Weapon shapely, naked, one, head from the mother's bowels drawn, wooded flesh and metal bone, limb only one and lip only one, grey blue leaf by red heat grown, helve produced from a little seed sown, resting the grass amid and upon, to be leaned on and to be leaned on. Strong shapes and attitudes of strong shapes, muscular trades, sights and sounds, long varied train of an emblem, dabs of music, fingers of an organist, skipping staccato over the keys of a great organ." Anyway, he passes it back.
He's like splashed himself with water, and like his hair is all like bedraggled around him, and he's like listen to the poem as he's been washing, and he holds it back, takes it back in wet hands, looks up at him. "I think the dwarves should keep you around if you have such pretty words for everything they forge."
Pretty words for pretty things. It came back to me from something. I don't know where from. Let's go back. Let's find our king. See if he needs us.
Vic nods. I'm not sure he's quite aware how much time has actually passed as part of this ritual.
This was quite a sight to see the dwarves forging in their own hearths.
Yeah, you can take one last... He'll incline his head as he like goes back to the forge to like speak with the smith, and you can take one last look at the dwarven forges, a sight that most men never see, as you walk back outside. And it's that strange sort of feeling as you entered and it was bright, and now it is dark. And in that time, Farath, you have like searched through the camp to find Erlendur. searching around, and you'll find him speaking with Arahad and some of the other Dunedain. They're kind of at a loss now what to do with like confusion as to now that Rohan's at war. They don't know if they're going there or if they're going home, and there's a great many of like the Dunedain people who have been rescued from the slave pits and such. And there's like a sort of camp that's come up, sprung up, I guess, where they're staying, and you can find them there.
Yeah, he sweeps into view with his new cloak. He's happy, giving it a test as he walks through the many encampments, and he's pleased to see Arahad and Erlinda in the same place, because this means he'll be able to speak to them and have both of their counsel as he arrives. He inclines his head as he does so, and he says, "It is good to see you.
You're looking fine," Arahad says, with like an appraising grin at all the glitter that you now carry and the fine cloak.
Faroth just gives a smile and puts his arms wide, and he says, "Spoils of war, my friend. It cost us, to be sure."
He'll nod at that. It did. Though much was gained, and he'll like look around at the emaciated but still like living Dunedain slaves.
I have been true to my word. I have liberated all that I can and all that we could have from this place. Our people are now returned to us. Now stands the matter at hand, a motion that I placed forward at the last moot. It has long been delayed. It is with a heavy heart, however, that I cannot return to Numinas. My friend's homeland is now being ravaged by war, and he has helped me both in our Nor and here in Gundabad and all across this realm. I cannot abandon his plight now, and I must go with him immediately. There can be no time spent here any longer.
And what of the king's moot? You can hardly be elected if you're not there, eh?
No, Barath says, I cannot. I wanted to be true to my word. Gundabad has fallen. Perhaps that will make the council look more kindly on me. But I am bound by honor to ride for Rohan.
I understand. Bonds of friendship pull us in many different directions, as do bonds of duty. I'll see what I can do to delay the moot, he'll say. He'll have this like smile on his face. I've seen you now, Faroth, in battle. I've seen you lead. It won't be me who steps up to try and take that place. I think it should be you.
Faroth gives an incline of the head, and he says, well, thanks to you, we'll have to wait a bit longer to find out if that is so.
I will take the freed with me, and we'll head back to Numinas. There was talk of an army of meeting in Gladden Fields, but we need to bring these people home. They won't survive a battle. They might not even survive the night, some of them.
They will be no good to anyone in the field. They deserve peace. They deserve rest. Long have they been within that mountain. They need to breathe the free air again.
We'll bring them home, and I'll see what I can do to sway them at home, to send everyone we have to the Gladden Fields for this battle that's to come. But it's hard to convince them, Faroth, when evil dwells at Fornost and orcs roam Arnor still.
Aye. If you see my father, I have no doubt that you will. Tell him... And then he looks down at the ground. Pay it no mind.
I'll tell him.
Harold smiles. He claps Arahad on the shoulder and then looks to Erlinder and he says, "Your prison has been unmade, friend."
Never thought I'd see it happen.
Nor me. Most of the time I just say things and then wait and see if they happen.
He laughs at that. Those men who have been freed, they know who it was that freed them.
That would be myself, but also Beragond and Cyneric and Bord. And we would not have got to this stage if it weren't for Nar and Syrian.
And the elves and the dwarves and the Bjornings, certainly.
Absolutely.
But they know it was you, your plan, your idea. And they're grateful, and they'll vote for you when the time comes.
Keep a weather eye on the horizon. It could be that we will send word for you. But for now, do as the plan dictates. Rally all you can and ensure that those freed here, ensure that they can live a good life. And he puts out like an arm to like bring in to the soldiers' sort of embrace for Erlinder.
He looks at it and looks at you and he says, "That's not my job. I'm going with you."
Faroth is surprised.
Of course I'm going with you. You saved me, and I've been with you ever since. Arahad is more capable at this. And he like waves his hand, which is like logistics and people. You're the king. You're my king. You saved my life and you saved all of these men.
I'm not king yet, but I appreciate the sentiment. I'd be glad to have you along, Erlinder. It will make the road far more interesting. And unpredictable. He gives him like a nod.
And then he'll clasp your hand.
Yeah, and then with that, he gives like one last nod to the collective Dunedain, and he's going to then sweep off to wait for his friends to have completed what they were doing, because obviously that would probably take longer, and find them later on.
So you spend actually quite a few hours on your own. Maybe like finding a cot to lie in or a chair to sit in, something like that, as you wait for them to return. And it's nighttime before they actually do return, and you'll see Cyneric like soaking wet and like somewhat reeking from like hours in the forge, and Beragond following behind. He carries, Cyneric does, an axe of similar design but indescribable beauty.
More toil.
Our work is never done, friend. Only this. Well, it cost us very little, and I think for great gain. And he kind of flips the axe over and like shows you the handle of it.
Yeah, he sort of looks very impressed. It looks great by his eyes. Never being an axe warrior himself, but still can see the fluidity of how the metal has been curved around the haft. And he just gives it like a wordless kind of wide-eyed glance at it, the quality of such a thing.
The forges they have down there are to be seen and never forgotten. I've never seen industry like that. Makes a man feel small. But I think they feel much better when they're holding something like this. And he kind of like gives it a few kind of chops through the air.
In time, it might be prudent with our new allies, the dwarves, to see if we can better armor all of our forces in the fight yet to come. But for now, we should be glad of these gifts, and we should be glad that we still have our lives. He looks back at the mountain, looming above them still. Get some rest. We have to leave soon if your people are to benefit from our aid. He gives you a nod, Cynric. Claps you, Beregond, on the side and goes to find somewhere to rest for the night.
So you can rest fairly easy. There's no hassle during the night. It's not quiet. There's work happening everywhere. And the dwarves work through the night. It seems and through the day, and never-ending toil for the dwarves. Always there's the clanging and the hammering and the chiseling as they try and rebuild what's left now after the assault. Although already you can see that like the bridge is clean of orc bodies and clean of orc blood, and the dragon head is being reformed into the shape of Durin the Deathless. His face, this great dwarven scowl to replace the dragon that was there. Speaking of dragons, at the center of the maze there is still a great beast that dwells. And maybe as you rest, or as you're kind of waking up, Thorin would approach and he would say, with arms folded, well, for some, sleep when there's so much work to do. And then he'll smile. There's still a dragon at the center of that maze. My gut says to kill it. If you have other ideas, now's the time to voice them.
Baroth it starts awake, and he's a bit surprised to see Thorin over him. And with that remark, he has to bite back from saying it's not a dragon, it's a drake, and surely you would know the difference, is what he wants to say to Thorin at this stage. But instead, he holds it back and he says, do you have a plan for such a thing?
We do. We'll bring ballistae to the corners, push them in, fire, pull them out, bring in more, fire, until the thing is dead.
And you're sure you'll be able to contain the beast whilst this is done? It can't break through or dig away.
It's been contained for what we understood to be hundreds of years. I think by now it would have escaped if it could.
Ensure that when it is killed, its scales, its claws, its teeth, its eyes are preserved. These will be useful ingredients, I assure you. And he sort of like looks across where they've been resting or whatever, and his eyes fall upon Beregond's weapon made from a dragon's teeth.
Thorin would nod. There's much can be made from the remains of such a beast. Though I want it dead sooner than later. You'll leave today?
The first light.
And who will you take with you? All of them? The elves? The men?
Now, out of game very quickly, I believe we discussed that we were going to ride ahead of the forces anyway. We were going to move faster, just us, towards Rohan, and... Wasn't that the plan?
Yeah.
It's been a little while, guys.
With the Rohirrim, we were going to ride.
Yes, with them, yeah.
So I think you want to ride to the Anduin and then sail to down,
That's
I think.
right,
Yeah, take Wold's body with us as well.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Take Word's body, leave it at the Carrock, and then sail the rest of the way down until you get to like the Wold or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can. Will we be able to send word to have the rest of the forces come with us? Like, are they awaiting our call, or will it be more difficult to mobilize them? I don't want to like say something and it be wrong, you know.
So they could. There's probably not enough boats in the world to bring that many people down the Anduin. Certainly not like where you are. So they could march down. The problem is if they march down the West Bank, they have to go through Lorien, which is not encouraged, as the Galadrim are not keen to have people stomp through their forests. On the other side, they'll be on the side of Mirkwood, which could be problematic potentially, although it's a great army, so who knows.
Well, we have representatives that might be able to speak on behalf of our forces.
Yes.
Hopefully.
At least by the time they get to the south of Mirkwood, it might get kind of dangerous. But I think that's the only option, because otherwise you're crossing numerous rivers from the mountains and you're not really going to get past Lorien, so they'll have to march as quickly as they can.
So you'll take Eoric and his Rohirrim with you, and Erlendur, and get in a boat basically and sail down, right? Is there anyone else you want to take with you?
For now, I mean, I'm open to counsel, but I think the smaller force that we have to get to Rohan, the quicker we can get there for the... Because it seems to me like they need us there now.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
Unless you guys have any thoughts of any other allies that we can bring might be useful. I thought maybe an elven representative perhaps, but don't know.
Well, you've got Erlander coming. I mean, you also represent Arnor, but I think we'll have Dwarven craftsmen who they've changed the siege weapons into boats. Has that already happened? There is like a boat ready?
Yes.
Or...
Yep.
Okay. It might be worth there being, like you say, maybe like half a dozen dwarves or elves or something as representatives.
We could ensure that one of the elves that comes with us is like we can go and speak to the elven cavalry and something and find out who is the fastest of the elven riders, so we can then send word quickly back to our forces. Perhaps that would be a good idea. Yeah. So we'll have like a very highly proficient cavalry member from the elves, perhaps amongst them. And do we bring dwarves? Will the dwarves even want to come with us?
I think your impression would be that almost every dwarf who is here has never wanted to be anywhere more in their life. Like it's they're not gonna. They are so happy to be here, and that it's theirs again. I think it's going to be very hard to convince any dwarf to leave this place. You know,
and not being funny, they will slow us down.
Yes, they're also terrible horse riders.
Yeah.
So if we take a few elven horse runners, I think, for messaging and sailing, maybe that seems a good bet.
Seven elven horse riders will come with us. Yeah, that'll do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Though many men have fallen to help the dwarves back into their homeland and to fight and win the dwarven homeland back, we think the dwarves would slow us down too much to try and fight for a human homeland. That debt must be discharged somewhere else.
I mean, I'd like to see.
I say that within dwarven hearing.
I think what you'll notice is like most of the dwarves who here are like busying themselves with their work. So like many of them are like admiring stonework, or you can see some of them like standing around in gangs, like looking at pieces of wall, like trying to decide what they're going to do with it. and like trying to figure out how they're going to fix the place. And maybe one or two of them would like look briefly, but then would like return to their work.
Perhaps the dwarfs can have some time with their homeland, but I would see them mobilized again. We have Dol Guldur and Erebor and the tracks of the Riddermark to save, and dwarven regiments would be invaluable.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the dwarves, and indeed the contract that we signed with the dwarves, was that we would absolutely go with them to Erebor at some point, and they would absolutely help us with Dol Guldur. But I'm pretty sure that in the contract it doesn't say anything about taking them to Rohan.
Yes, it very specifically doesn't.
Yeah. So
No.
But we will hopefully be able to enlist Rohirrim help in Rohan, so they will hopefully make up for the lack of dwarves, perhaps. Hopefully.
And the dwarves will go with you to Gladden Fields to fight in Dol Guldur, definitely. But I think, and I think they would go with you to Rohan, but not now, not for like months, because they need, for them, this is the most important event that's happened, maybe ever,
Yeah,
getting their birthplace back.
For now, we ride with what we have. Our road is long. We need to get to the river as quickly as possible.
I still request from the dwarves a token force to be sent with the others, because what use is a contract cannot always be wriggled out of. It's the goodwill behind a contract that makes it valuable. The trust that people build, the trust that is behind the contract, that is built up over weeks, months, years, in your case, centuries. And though this is only the beginning of a contract, we have laid down our lives for your homes. And I think it would be it's not in the contract, but a generous act to build a longer-term trading relationship, maybe a relationship on which trade, trust, and future prosperity can be built. If you add a clause to the contract to include the fate of Rohirrim, the Rohirrim in our contract. It was not negotiated before, but it is something that could profit you in the future.
Thorin looks between. He's like turned around now. He like looks at Baragon, and he looks at you, Faroth, and then back to Baragon, and he says, "Which one of you is king?
Not I.
Which one of you makes the decisions here? Which one of you signed the contract?"
There are those that call me king, Thorin. That is true.
I would understand that you are the leader of this endeavor, and yet your man here has a very free tongue. He knows nothing of contracts and why we sign them.
We will go without the dwarves for now.
He attempts to besmirch our honor. He attempts to say that we are cowards and that we are wriggling out of a contract that we have signed. That is not the case. It is very clear in Articles 84, in Articles 483, and he like points out all these different like parts of the contract. It is clear.
Enough! Oakenshield, like Farrell, like snaps. He loses his temper. You forget that we risked our lives. Baragond nearly met his end in the bowels of your home. Do not cite contract chapters at us when we stand on the victory that we awarded you. Remember what we did for you here, Thorin, because I assure you, we will return for that favor.
There is no problem with us sticking to the terms of the contract that we signed, that we all signed and agreed upon what the terms would be. Problem that I have having my honor questioned when I stick to those terms. I want an apology for you, my man.
I was merely requesting that they adapt the terms of this
I am
contract.
not speaking to you. I'm speaking to your king.
Varoth takes a step forward. And in a dark part of his mind, he wishes to emphasize the height difference for a moment whilst having this conversation with him. And he looks down at Thorin and he says, the sentiment behind what my man has said remains. It would indeed be good to have dwarven representatives when it comes to building relationships with the other people in this world. We understand that it is a great time for you and that you have been returned to your home, but there is still work to be done. Just because you have had your victory does not mean that you cannot help us with ours.
We will help you at Dol Guldur as we said we would.
Fine. Varoth turns and looks to Baragond. It was a noble sentiment, Baragond.
But it fell on deaf ears, he says under his breath, but possibly loud enough to be heard.
Where is my apology?
You are not owed anything, as you have rightly said.
Is there an apology in the contract?
Either.
Thorin turns to look at the men behind him, and one of them, this like bald man, bald dwarf, with tattoos on his head, like a long beard. He's like much bigger than Thorin. He'll like step forward, bristling at like the insult, and Thorin will look to him and like put his hand in his chest and push him back. Contract remains. But this will be remembered, this insult given here in front of all of these people. I'll remember that this king will let his men speak freely and cast insults at other kings.
Varoth just gives Thorin just like a disbelieving look. Remember it if you wish, Thorin. And he looks and he gives his friends a nod. We have somewhere to be.
You best hurry then.
I've part of the way through that, like snuck out the back or something.
I would.
Yeah. Because otherwise I feel I would have said something, but I can't. As much as I'm horrified by how that worked out, I feel that only would have happened if I wasn't there. So I think Cynric had two things particularly that he wanted to get done before they left, and he knows that he's delayed them through forging weapons. So I think early on, he heard that the dwarves weren't to be coming, but he wasn't going to press the issue. And around that time, he started to leave quietly. I think every day that they've been here resting before Bord's passing and after it, he's gone and walked the fields where the cavalry lay, looking for the AO helm of his people, of his line, and he spent as much time as he can searching, maybe fruitlessly, for a little golden horse head trinket amid the dead. I'm not sure if he finds it or not, but I'd like, maybe as part of some of the reclamation teams or something, like you said, the dwarves were cleaning up. I can't remember. You know, we were put in the antechamber before we saw Gurney, and there was an old dwarf that turned out to be like his father, or his uncle. His uncle. Do you remember his name? Or...
I don't. I can get it.
The name isn't necessary, but basically, because Cynric got on with that dwarf, and he seems to be one of the more respectful. But maybe either the dwarf comes to him, seeing Cynric wander alone, maybe on these fields, or maybe the dwarf was chipping in, or overseeing some of the work.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd still kicking around in the dirt, perhaps, and pushing orc bodies aside. He'd speak to that dwarf. He showed us a great deal of respect. What seems like a lifetime ago, you kept a clear head where your kin often don't.
I'm old.
That you are. Perhaps with that age certainly comes your wisdom in a great many matters. I have one matter to ask of you. This helm upon my head, it is, ancient beyond me. I don't know the full extent of it, but it allowed the orcs and myself to control that drake, the small one that sits within the Shattered Dragon Maw, now remade. I can't take that with me. Maybe, even if I wanted to, perhaps I shouldn't. But it needs someone to keep it alive, but also someone to teach it to be a boon to the dwarves. Sure, its dragon flame could help you smith, could help protect.
He kind of furrows his brows as you're talking. Dragons and their kin are creatures Melkor. Fell things, evil things. That helm, he looks at it and all its splendor allows you to control them. Then it too must be a fell thing.
Maybe his armor thinks. He thinks back to the armor when Alfarazon, perhaps a name still foreign to him, was mentioned, and people looked perturbed by it. Maybe it's just that we Rohan are not such a superstitious people. Maybe we are not. And he kind of smiles at the dwarf. Lived long enough to learn from our mistakes. But I do not feel that fell nature. Perhaps it is there. But I have stood and entered a battle of the wills against Sauron himself. I have destroyed the things that he has held precious. I have truly tasted fell things. Corruption of man and dwarf. This I do not worry about. And he's taps the helm. You do not think the drakeling should stay? Seems cruel to kill it, defenseless, and perhaps too risky to release it.
They're going to kill the dragon at the center of the maze. Something I can only agree with. Our people have suffered greatly at the hands of such beasts.
Sorry, you go.
There is much hate in the memory of our people for dragons.
I do not disagree that a dragon that old and that large and that cruel, raised in such a way it knows only cruelty. Do not disagree that it is a danger to your people and that you should kill it, but I speak of the smaller creature, the one about the size of a horse. That one is still young, still simple, could be molded.
You can see him thinking about it. And he'll look up at you and say, there is a sickness in our people. We don't speak of it, but there is a similarity. Maybe that's why we hate them so much, the dragons, the dwarves. There is a lust for gold. We pretend like we don't feel it, but we do. Maybe there's a kinship there, or maybe there is something darker.
I have been through darkness. I have suffered. My people have suffered, and they suffered now. But I've come to see the world in brighter colours and more optimistic times. And I'd hoped maybe even something like that drakeling could be redeemed. Maybe it is not the case.
I can try, lad. I can try, I suppose.
He's been alternating between pleading and then like scrabbling around on the ground, perhaps, and back again. And at that, he kind of, I think he's like on one knee at this point, and he turns to him, and there is a smile, and it's the kindness that he considers towards creatures, and that he wanted to extend to this beast. I would be indebted. I will tell it as much when I see it again next, but if it is too much of a problem, if the glint in its eye grows too hungry, then you have my permission to slay it as quickly as you can. Just perhaps let me believe that something so foul could be good again. And he like puts his hand on the dwarf's shoulder.
It's a noble thought. One that we could all do with, I think. We shall see. I will try.
Thank you, friend. Now, if only I could find that danged horse head. And he like goes back to rummaging around.
I think with like enough rummaging, you would eventually find it. It would be like badly dented, maybe stood on by a horse.
Mm-hmm.
But you would find like so it would probably be caved in from the side or whatever, but you would find it, and you think with like the necessary amount of dings or whatever, it would be fixable.
So when he finds it, I think he's like, I mean, he's in fine things, quickly turned dirty, as they always do when he's wearing them. I think he's like up to his arms in bodies, all the rest of it, and he finds it pressed into the dirt, and he holds it up, and it is warped and damaged, as you say. And he grasps it like white-knuckled. My mother would kill me if I returned home without it. And he stands and starts strolling back to the camp.
So you can return and find many of them, those assembled, basically ready to go, or like making their final sort of checks, strapping things to saddles and getting ready. There's a little bit of a ride to the actual river mouth, and you can begin that together. with Aeric and Rohan with you, as well as the elves that you had brought, and you can make your way to the river, where you'll get into a boat with the remains of Board and those few Bjornings who remain with you. And as you begin that sail, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in 5 minutes.
Oh, thanks. Lloyd,
Yes, sir.
I just put into the chat my background document again, because if we're heading that way, it might become relevant once more. Now we're not on the other side of the globe.
I can't access it. Is there?
I will go get you a view link.
Yeah, deadly.
Oh, it's not the... Yeah. So there's one, like in the bonds, the friendly bond, the first one, Rice, who I had because I think I had my father as like the marshal of the Oldenburg Ered, until he died, along with like my two older brothers at different times, and Rice, like his best friend and like family friend, took over that, so he might be. I mean, maybe dead. Maybe they're all dead, but he might be around. As my mother was like a senior councilwoman or something, whatever's appropriate. But
yeah,
people may well. She might have organized a retreat or something, but
makes sense. Okay, right. That's handy. That was a longer section than I anticipated. I thought that would be 15 minutes. I'm really glad. It was great. We got loads of really good stuff there, I think. But I anticipated it being pick up the treasure and there we go, which is great, you know.
I don't know. I very much enjoyed it. I suppose we literally just snapshotted a few hours and role played those few hours.
Yep.
You know, about synchronicity,
but I love that. I mean, that's my favorite part of this game, I think, is those little bits in between the action, you know.
I'm very happy that Thorin is now a sworn enemy of hates Beregond.
Antagonizing the dwarves. What are you doing?
Yeah, I've tried to play Thorin as close to what I imagine Thorin to be like, and I think that overall he's like a good person, and I think that he's like honorable and just, but he will not tolerate being insulted. You know, he believes he's a king, and he is a king, and he will not tolerate like being told that he's like wiggling his way out of a contract when he's doing exactly what the contract states. You know, and I like it though because it's like true, because he is being very sort of miserly about the contract. He's being very specific, but yeah, it's like nice, I think.
Caius, if you could put up that poem at some point so I could copy it in, that would be great. It can be after the game, or whatever. And thanks for finding the dwarves' name.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to wrap up that kind of the dragon bit.
Yeah. Did you give him the helm then? Yeah.
No, I did. I
didn't. Okay.
I wanted to off screen or whatever. That I just basically tell the dragon that this dwarf is now you were to obey, to look after him or something.
Right.
I mean, it was a felt thing. He didn't want the helm. I didn't think he would want the helm, considering it evil. Yeah, I just, because Cineric's often been a diplomatic one, and I was like, well, you guys have taken this down like a very angry angle, so I was imagining that Cineric probably wasn't there, so for that, otherwise it wouldn't really have come to pass, but so he doesn't know that's happened.
Yep, I reckon he won't know either until like they meet up again.
The repercussions.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so you've boarded. You've ridden to the river and onto this sort of flat-bottom boat that the dwarves have made, and you can bring the various horses and such inside. It's a couple of boats, and you can begin your sail down the Anduin. It's peaceful on the Anduin. Certainly, as you're like making your way down, you don't see any signs of orcs, unsurprisingly, as they were all in that big castle that you destroyed. or certainly the vast majority in this region would have been there. And so it's quite a pleasant journey down the Anduin, and it starts to get warmer as you kind of head further south. The days are quite boring. There's a lot of like sitting around and a lot of just like enjoying the journey. As you make your way down, so a couple of days will go by, and you can just like eat and relax and get rests in and just enjoy yourselves as you're making your way down. I don't know how much joy there is. Board is with you that remains. And also there is the ever looming threat of what is happening in Rohan. But at least for now, there's nothing you can do to move faster. And so there is a lot of kind of sitting and waiting. It's nighttime as you make your way past the Gladden Fields, which is where the ring was lost all those many, many years ago. It's like this. Once was a great lake, but that has receded, and now there's a swamp there, some sort of marshlands and things like that. And as you kind of like are going by there,
Beragond leans on the side, looking down to see if he sees any gleaming gold at the bottom.
I think it's unlikely, but you can give me a perception check.
Found it.
Game over.
There we go.
And I'd just like to add that it's my birthday today.
Oh, really?
You can like search through the water. I imagine Beragond.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
With my one eye.
Yeah.
Oh no! With my one eye, I get a 2 actually.
Okay. So you're like looking through the murky water, and like maybe you put your hand in as you lean over the side of the boat, but there's no sign of any glint there. And you don't hear the ring music playing. None of that as you're making your way down. But you can see the Gladden Fields, and this is where Isildur was like attacked and where he drowned all those many years ago. And maybe that's like foremost in your thoughts as you're sailing by it.
Yeah, I think it runs through Farrell's mind, an ancestor of his. And this is where he met his grisly end at the hands of orcs, rather with the arrows of orcs. And he spies sort of like the woodland fringes where the ambush would have taken place, perhaps. I imagine they don't know the exact location where it happened, but yeah, there is a dark mood upon Vareth as they pass this particular point of the river.
You continue downwards through the great swath of Middle-earth, really, like you're traveling for a very, very long time. You'll be in the boat for well over a week, I imagine, as you make your way down. Before you,
Carrock?
yes, you're about to get there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then you'll see in the distance this huge rock that like juts out. You would have seen it before as you like crossed over with the army the first time, called the Carrock. It's like this ancient standing stone, I guess. It's natural, though it looks sort of man-made almost. It sticks up there, stairs carved into it, so that you can make your way to the top. Sacred to the Bjornings. It said that sometimes the eagles, the great eagles, will like nest there. And yeah, it would be sort of just coming into dawn as you like finally would land here. You'll see there's 2 Bjornings standing, one on each side of the Anduin at this like fording point, insisting upon people paying taxes as they pass, a toll basically. And as you kind of like pull the boats up, you can see the Carrock before you.
I imagine boards been laid out on a table or something this entire journey, like some sort of funerary barge. And like Cynric comes to get Tim. I presume we've got like a couple of Bjornings, you know, the survivors that maybe have come to see him off.
Yeah, they're with you.
And he He holds the great hand of Board and whispers, "Your journey is at an end, my friend."
Yeah, his great form looks peaceful, eyes closed, pale, as he lies upon the table.
Then Seneric would be one of those like pallbearers.
Yeah,
Carry
it
him?
won't be easy. There's these steep stairs that are carved into the Carrock, and with the Bjornings and yourself, probably takes a couple more than that actually, because Board is so heavy and so big, and with the weight of the wood underneath them, a bunch of you will have to like walk quite carefully up these steps, groaning and tired by the time you've made it halfway up. And by the time you've made it all the way to the top, the sun is just out and morning comes, and you can see here at the very top of this Carrock, you can see the Misty Mountains to one side, and you can see over the top of Mirkwood to the other. And from the top, Mirkwood is beautiful, all these flowering trees and sort of flocks of birds and things flying above it, not the same as you know when you're within it. And at the top here, you can see that there are some offerings from Bjornings here, the odd axe or like honey cakes and things that have been left here, sort of as a thank you to those Bjornings who have gone.
Seneric looks to those arranged. Did you say it was like dusk or dawn?
I think he's
Dawn.
frozen.
Oh.
Oh.
Sorry, what was the answer?
It's just a little bit past dawn, so you would have gotten here at around dawn, and now it has become it's just about mid-morning now, probably by the time you've made your way up.
He looks to the others. And then he takes a step forward. We've already said goodbye, my friend, a few times now. This is, as I'm told, to be your final resting place. It is a brighter dawn. This day we find, with Gundabad fallen and the Free Peoples united. I see that offerings are the tradition here, and although now, and he looks at his friends, we are bedecked in countless riches, he kind of leans in and says a little quieter, "They have little worth to me. There is something, though." And he pulls, like, I think he may have had it palmed in his hand the entire time. And it's the comb that Baragon gave him in, like, the second episode. I've held this for dear friend, and it was given to me. It's maybe the first thing that was given to me by someone of this fellowship. And I think maybe you should take it with you.
The ivory comb of Gilrain of Osgiliath of the House of Demrod. It comes from a worthy house, and I can think of no worthier holder than Board.
He
And few people more in need of a comb either.
The Bjorning's chuckle.
Yeah, Cynric certainly does. And he like wraps the comb in the large fist of Board and like puts it against his chest. Sleep well, friend. We'll meet again soon. And turns from the cairn, the plinth that he lies upon.
You see the Bjornings will each leave a thing as well. Some of them will like cut a lock of hair and leave it there, or will like take a ring from their finger or something and will leave it with Board. You can make your way back down to the Carrock, from the Carrock back to the water, and back into the boats. There's a sort of grim silence. The Bjornings will give their goodbyes and like head back to their towns in Mirkwood, in the Mirkwood, up to the north a little bit. There's not many of them left now from the group that went north, and in typical sort of Bjorning fashion, they won't be particularly like emotional. They'll kind of nod their heads and then turn and won't look back as they make their way home. And now, with less of you, you can get onto the boats with the elves and the Rohirrim and make your way south. You'll sail for another few days south on the Anduin before sailing past Lorien. On your west, you'll see the great forest where Galadriel makes her home, and Celeborn, two of the oldest and most revered elves, and where the Galadrim make their home, notoriously sort of xenophobic and unwelcoming of people in their forest. Though there's almost a sort of music that you can hear as you like go by that place, until you will pass even further south, past the fields of Celebrant, and then finally towards the North Undeep, and you can see the great expanse of the Wold ahead of you, this endless grassland. And this is where you'll put the boats up.
Cynric, I think when they were passing Lorien, like, and to an extent, well, with Lorien, he gives it an eye. I think like those of Rohan know of that place, and then no one goes there. So he is somewhat stiff during that part of the journey, but upon reaching the Wold, like, though this is the backwater of Rohan and his home, I think it still fills him with a joy that they maybe haven't seen in quite some time. Good to see the grass sea again.
And grassy is the best way to describe it. It's just this endless plain. There's no trees at all, just grass and rocks and hills. They say that there used to be a forest here, and that's where the name comes from, the Wold. It's like the Rohirric word for forest, but obviously over the many centuries, it's been taken away until now it's just this endless grass plain. And you can kind of get out of the boats and get your horses ready and saddle up. Eoric seems kind of relieved to be home again, as did the Rohirrim, and they like seem more comfortable now being out of the water, which they were uncomfortable with the whole way.
I think as people are disembarking the horses and making preparations, Farroth is going to, maybe he sees Baragon like walking down the gangplank onto the shore, whatever, and he stops him as he walks by, and he looks Baragond right in the eyes, and he says, "Is everything well with you, Baragond? I know Gundabad took its toll on all of us, but I just wanted to see if you were keeping well."
Gundabad was an ordeal, and I will be scarred by it forever. But I am feeling strong.
Will you still not speak of what happened within?
I do not have very clear memories of what happened within, and what I remember of them, what they did, and how I reacted, gives me no pride and no joy.
Farroth gives like a small nod.
I am not the hero I hoped I would be.
Baragond, you stormed into the caves beneath Gundabad with naught but a handful of elves. If you're not a hero, I don't know what could be.
But all those elves are dead.
The elves are dead. The elves are dead. But you yourself have cost not a few lives in your leadership either. We both come from the line of Numenor, and it's a bloody line.
It is, Farrell says, slightly taken aback by this topic being put onto himself.
He will lead them to ruin.
You will lead us. You have leadership qualities, but leadership is a heavy burden to bear. If you have doubts, if you have questions, well, we are here to counsel you. You know that. To help you bear your burdens. That armband looks quite heavy, he says, trying to lighten the mood.
He smiles and he looks to it and then back to you, and he claps you on the shoulder and he says, "I know that you are here to help me and give me counsel. We would not have got so far if I did not."
I spoke before of not being proud of myself. Early in our travels, we traveled to Henethanen, the stronghold of the Rangers. Now, we were taken there blindfolded, but I know North Ithilien well, and I fear I may have betrayed the position of that to the dark when I was taken. That, and also,
You told them everything.
Maybe you should. My words have turned the dwarves, have strained your alliance with the dwarves, and they have done. I'm not sure whether I'm serving you or a pawn of your enemies at the moment. You'd do well to keep me at a distance, Farroth, son of Fardred. I do not know whether I am your friend or your enemy. But I hope I am your friend.
Farroth is just shocked at this, and he says, Baragond, I would have you by my side because you have kept me alive. We've all done this. You and Cyneric are the closest things I have to friends. You are my friends, and you always will be. Yes, I have doubts, and you have doubts. We all have doubts. We are but men. We were born with it, and we will die with it. But one thing I do not have a doubt about is you. If you remember anything, remember that.
Perhaps you should.
I think it's probably there that like maybe Baragon like keeps pace and Val just stops walking and just watches him go.
You can mount up and begin riding in from the river through this endless plain of grass. Now, are you leading them to Eldenberg, Cyneric, or are you going to let Eric lead in the direction he wants to go, or what do you think?
I'd probably speak to Eric about his last known intel, because he said that they'd swept in to East Emmett.
Yeah, so they had basically walked through the Wold because there's nothing there really apart from some shepherds and a couple of nomadic people, but there's not really anything settled there, or not too much anyway. And he had said that they had kind of come through there, and that there had been a retreat of many of the people who did have settlements here. They had some advance warning and retreated everyone that they could. So Eldenberg is a fortress, or something like a fortress, I suppose. So maybe people fled to there,
I think he would feel the pull of his home quite strongly, especially as it would be the first bastion to be hit. Maybe if they repulse them or if they hang on, maybe they could make a difference. He hopes so. Maybe they would pull relatively central. I don't know if you're looking at a map, but relatively central down the Wold, so if they came across something, they could kind of quickly head towards West Emmett and the Entwash and kind of skirt anything, but so they're taking a circuitous route maybe towards the hills of East Emmett, not following the river for sure. That would be too far over.
Okay.
He'd at least voice that to Eric, whether he thought that was a good idea or not.
Mm-hmm.
But he's driven for that.
He would say, if I was fleeing, I would flee to Eldenberg. It has walls at least. Something. If I was running, if I was riding, that's where I would go. Or I would go to the river and see if I could get a boat. Hard to know, really. And you see, now that he's back, there was a moment of oh, we're back in Rohan, and then it switched to, oh, we're back in Rohan. And now his thoughts are definitely dark as he kind of thinks about what these people did and where they fled to.
I think Cyneric was much the same, maybe because he didn't ride through it on the way. He's optimistic, or maybe he has to be, but he would make it clear. Perhaps we ride through the center of the grass sea and skirt the hills, and if we see anything, we can try pull back. But we should. I'm keen to try and see the walls of my home again and hope they still stand.
He would nod in agreement, and they would begin riding with the elves, the Rohan and yourselves, through the Wold. It's just this featureless, trackless place of just grass in every direction, and these great hills that kind of Wend up and down. and you can kind of make your way through them as you try and approach Eldenburg. There's like a couple of days, probably, maybe about a day and a half, I think, before you like come to the area that you're kind of familiar with, that you would consider to be like the extreme outskirts of the sort of fiefdom, I guess you would say, of Eldenburg. And it's at that stage that you would see like a rider, one rider riding away from that place towards you. At this great distance, the elves would say that it's not an orc and it's a horse, and there's a man on it.
So I think maybe to distract himself before they come up, he would be like in mid-conversation, maybe with Fareth and Beragond, or just Beragond, who might listen to some inane facts, but he'd talk about, you know, some of the wildlife that can be found here, and he'd mentioned that like there are colonies of bees that make their hives in the ground in the hillocks, and that Bord would have quite liked the honey that came from them, and he would get a little dark, a little sad at that he won't be able to see the bounty that his homeland had to offer. And then the call might go up.
Yeah, the rider kind of approaches. The horse looks exhausted, and you can see the rider sort of slumped. And as it comes closer, you can see it's not a man at all. It's a boy, maybe 14 or 15. And he's wearing like a chain hauberk, though it's far too big for him, with the sleeves go past his hands. And he has like a helm on his head, though it also is too big. He has it like strapped tight, but still it wobbles. And you can see that there's a girl younger than he is, sitting on the saddle in front of him, and he'll like look in your direction and panic, and then he'll see that there's elves, and he would think that must be a good thing, and he'll like spur the horse, which is like exhausted, forward.
This cannot be good.
He'll like get close and he'll look between the lot of you. He doesn't know who to address. You all look fine and glorious and like warriors, and he's not really sure who's in charge, so he'll just say, "Help."
I can't afford a step or two. My name is Cynric. What can be done?
There's men, lots of men. I was out in the fields. I'm Chaewolf, Lord. I was out in the fields riding, playing, and I returned and our farm was burnt, and there's a great many men at Eldenburg. They have wagons, golden armor. I grabbed my father's mail and I grabbed his helmet and his spear, and he'll like pat it at the side of the horse. And shameful to say, but I ran. They chased
Well
me.
done, lad.
They chased me for a day, but then they gave up. I think they went back. Have you water?
Fareth canters up as well and takes his water flask, his water skin from his belt, and presses it to him. No, actually, he gives it to the little girl first, I think.
Yeah, she's asleep or maybe unconscious. But he'll take it and he'll like pour it into her mouth, and she'll like cough and wake, and then he'll like drink a little too greedily, just like of desperation, and then he'll like cough and then like drink more slowly.
These golden armored men, were these the ones that were attacking?
Yes, Lord. A great many of them. They look foreign. They had these banners. They were red and they had snakes on them.
the Easterlings.
They are here in force. How far is your farm from Eldenburg? Do you know of the region?
Yes, Lord. Not far. A couple of hours. They must have passed through. I went to Eldenburg to try and hide or to call the Lord when the farm was destroyed, but then I saw them, all these men, and so I fled instead.
Had word been sent to Eldenburg? Or were you the word?
I don't know. I was away playing like an idiot. Foolish boy I am.
Not your fault. Managed to rescue your sister here. That is all that can be asked of you.
There's lots of them. A great many, Lord. More than you, he'll say, looking at like the band you have here. They were camped in front of Eldenburg.
They're still camped there. Perhaps it still stands. You saw many hundreds? Thousands even?
He looks at you like he doesn't know what 1,000 is.
He like canters a little closer. Have you ever seen the mustering, boy? The Arid?
Yes, Lord. Yes.
Was it more than that?
More than there would be at Eldenburg, Lord.
Yes. It's quite the number. I'm not sure if we can face this head on. I don't. Maybe we could go to the west, even as far as Edoras, maybe. See what the other musters, if they have united.
But perhaps we could ride there to see how many, to get an accurate number, an accurate assessment of their numbers.
Very
If
much
this-
right. We should go.
They are not Rohirrim. This child outrode them. So, well, so at least you'll be able to get back.
And that,
the horses were slow, Lord, and they had armor on their horses. I think they were very heavy, and so I was faster. And they shot arrows at me. I had a shield, but I dropped it. It was too heavy.
he looks at the arrayed elves and Rohirrim. You all have a choice. You can come with us and see the enemy, or you could ride now and send message that the enemy still camp around Eldenburg. Do we send it an elven rider north to have the army move quicker?
It would take a long time to ride north, Eric says. We could send elven riders to whatever holdfasts they're able to get to.
Yes, we can send riders to the surrounding areas and muster reinforcements.
it's unlikely that the entire Easterling force is at Eldenburg. It's likely that this is a small part of that force.
Agreed.
So
I suggest.
Sorry, we go.
Where do you think King Thengel will be mustering? Edoras would be the most likely place, or well, I don't know. You know Rohan better than me. But if we send our main force down to join him, and then we go and scout out and have a look, see if we can see them, and if we see a lone rider, maybe we can capture that and get some more information, a messenger or something. Coordinating between a smaller troop and their main forces, so we can find out where their main force is and what little news a messenger would have.
You're a learned man. I believe Thengel would muster at Edoras. Let us ride the day and see the force, perhaps, and then come with word.
The boy looks between you. Can I come with you, Lloyd? I don't know where I was going. Just away.
There must
I
be
think you
somewhere
should ride. Sorry, my lord.
There must be somewhere they can rest. This little one looks to be in a bad state. And then it looks to you to Baragon to see what you were going to say.
These children should ride with the elves and the others to muster with King Thengel.
Aye.
So is the idea then to send the elves in various directions to basically go to all the holdfasts they can find and try and muster and see what's happening in Edoras, and you are going to go to Eldenburg and then to Edoras?
Is it more useful to send the Rohirrim to muster the Rohan people? I'm not sure how much they'll listen to lone elf riders. They can stay with us and fan out and scout. Maybe we could send Eric, and he could go straight to Thengel.
Yeah.
The rest, and maybe some of his men could fan out to various other places, and we will say we will be a day or two behind you with better information.
Yeah, he nods at that, keen to take action and do something, and he'll say, "We'll see you in a few days then."
And take the boy with you.
Yes, we'll keep him safe.
And maybe I will mention the route that we might take on the way back in case they, need to try and send riders back to us or to meet us halfway. I'd point out that meet at the crossing on the Entwash or something here or something like that.
So Eric and Cheowolf, the boy, and the various Rohirrim will ride from you, and you can begin moving towards Eldenburg. You ride for the best part of the day. Probably approaching by night would be my guess, to avoid being seen. And it's kind of evening as you arrive in the vicinity anyway. You can ride past burnt down farmsteads that have been totally taken, so all the supplies and everything has been taken. And you can ride until you can crest the hill and see down Eldenburg. Up on a hill, this walled Rohirric settlement. There's smoke coming from chimneys. It looks like there are people inside still. It's not a flame. Though outside of the walls, you can see a siege camp, but there are a great many banners there. Notably, this banner of a red field with a black serpent upon it, black snake. You recognize that that's something that the other Easterlings you had seen had borne as well. obviously some profane symbol of their king, something like that. And you can see that down there among the Easterling troops, of which there are a great many. You think many hundreds, if not 1,000 or so, encamped there. There are definitely a majority of these Easterlings that you'd seen previously with like this golden sort of armor or bronze armor, something like that. And you can see that glinting in the firelight. But also there's a great many, maybe 100 or so wagons or chariots, things like that. You would have heard of these people, Wayne riders from the east. They're actually distant cousins to the Rohirrim, the same sort of stock that they went into the east while the Aored went into the west. And they're excellent horsemen as well. And you would see that arrayed down below you, this force besieging Eldenburg.
They crest a hill. See that sight. Again, there is this double-edged sword of the happiness of home and the happiness of the wall still standing, but then what is arrayed against it sinks his heart.
Yeah, so you know that like there's no way that the forces inside Eldenburg would be able to like fight these outside, though they can probably hold it decently for a while. And you know that there's at least a couple of like freshwater wells and stuff inside. Though how much warning they got and how much food they have, that's a different question that you cannot know the answer to.
Supplying the besieging army, providing enough food in a hostile territory. It depends on how well provisioned they are as to how long they can keep their siege. Look, can you see any sign of?
Taking burning supplies.
Any sign of do they have livestock with them? Livestock to eat? Have they herded animals together?
Yeah, so you would see in the Wayne Rider sort of camp that there's like, it looks like they're like a mobile city almost. They look like nomadic people. They have animals with them and also these like great sort of tents that they've put up made of animal skins. There's definitely like supplies there. The Easterling encampment is much more militarized. It's like very neat and organized. All the tents are in like nice, neat rows. And you think by the look of them that they probably are well supplied in the sort of cleanliness and the precision of the camp.
Faroth gives a dark look and he says it could be that they've struck other settlements first. That would supply them for a long time, if that is the case. How many of us are there at the moment, collective, now that obviously some of our people have gone off to...
So there's the 3 of you and the 7 elves, I think, and Erlendur.
Faroth is going to look to Cynric and he says, "These are your lands. What would you have done?"
So where the Oldenburg sits in like hill country, within the Riddermark, and Eldenburg on top of the grandest hill for some distance. It is a good position, and they, if supplied and if forewarned, they might be able to last quite some time. But we've achieved a great much. I'm not sure a glorious charge with the 11 of us could breach that camp. Now that we have the numbers, maybe we would do better to see how the muster goes.
We have the numbers here. We need to know where their main army is, and let's watch the camp for a while. See if any messengers ride out at dawn or during the night, and we'll see if we can catch a messenger.
Seems a wise idea.
So you can make. Go ahead.
Farrell is just going to look to their accrued forces, the Elven's riders as well, and he instructs them in true Ranger style exactly the best places they can split up and sit around the camp to ensure that no one will be able to leave the camp without us seeing, basically, if that's all right.
Yeah, definitely. You can like get a commanding view of like each sort of end of the camp and have the bulk of you in the center, make a cold camp there with no fires.
And one other thing, because we've just leveled, Faroth now has something called hide in plain sight, which means he can take 1 minute to give party people basically +10 to their stealth checks when hiding. So he's going to do that as well.
Excellent. Yep.
I have similar. So
with both of your skills and like the time necessary to like camouflage and like find a suitable place, you can like make a hide and be basically invisible. And you can like watch the camp in various places and like establish like a system of like bird calls or something if something happens. You can watch the camp for the bulk of the night. You'll see that like the Wainwriter camp, the thing you notice most of all is that these seem to be two separate forces besieging this place. Like the Easterlings have a very specific way about going about things. You can see that their side of the camp is extremely regimented, that their watches like of guards and things like that are very predictable, but also very effective. Like they will send out the new guards. They'll spend like a couple of minutes together and then the other guards will leave. There is like patrols happening, but they change direction every now and then. There's not like they have they're basically an incredibly tight military camp, while the Rain Riders on the other side of the camp are much more disorganized. There seems to be like some singing happening there. There's like a fairly decent amount of them, but like there's a lot of seemingly carousing and things happening, and it doesn't have the same sort of tight security and like organization. A few times you'll see like an Easterling with like a banner from his back, escorted by like 10 others, like march into the Wainwrider camp and clearly like say something, and they'll die down in quietness for a while, and he'll go back, and then like a couple of hours later it'll build up again, and another Easterling will have to come and like tell them to be quiet again, and to like keep order. So there's an obvious problem there, and it seems like the Easterlings are in charge, but the Wainwriters are still there as well. That's the main thing you would notice as you like watch them for the night. No messengers leave during the night. The morning will come and you will see an Easterling, several Easterlings begin riding from the camp. 5 or 6.
Faroth in a hushed voice, like that he's gonna like do his best to like crawl it. Maybe us three at least are in the same spot, but he's basically going to try and communicate to Cynric. He's very aware that they're in his lands, and he wants Cynric to obviously have the final word on these moments, because obviously these are going to affect his kin and his people. So he looks across and he says in a hushed whisper, "Do you wish us to engage them?"
So he's like surveying the situation, and he knows like these hills and gullies and valleys and stuff. And yes, we should wait for them to get some distance from the camp, but I think this place would be the best to strike from. And he like, I'm sure we've already like planned it out, but made suggestions about we wait for them for so long, and then we will can come in behind them and catch them or surround them with the elves flanking in.
Are they mounted, Lloyd?
Yes.
But
I
on
thought you
heavier
said so.
horse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Catch them in a valley or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they'll make their way out of the camp, and you'll see none of them head in your direction, which I would say is east of Eldenburg. They're all going west, which would tell you basically that there are more forces west. Is obviously where they're going, and this is the furthest force back, basically the first force that you've encountered, and also like obviously the furthest one back. If you're going east to west, and you can kind of break camp quietly and like ride at a great distance around the siege camp to not be seen, and like track and follow these Easterlings. You'll see that they split at certain points. You can kind of keep them in view just barely, what the elves can. And you'll see that occasionally like one of them will like split off, obviously going to a certain place. And I don't know if you want to wait until there's just one, or if you want to follow one, or if you want to follow the main group, or what you want to do.
I believe capturing a number of them might be helpful. We can establish if there's any discrepancies within their stories when we question them. So it might be helpful to have more than one. But obviously that depends entirely on the opportunities that were afforded to us. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'd suggest after... Sorry, go on.
Oh, no, you go.
Just after seeing the first one go off, I suggest we try and... how many are left in the main party? In the party that have left?
So there's 6 total. Once the first one needs to be 5, and then they'll keep kind of leaving every...
I suggest we ambush the 5 and leave the other one to go off.
Very well. Aim to keep at least 2 alive.
Ambush the 5 if we can, but actually just catch them and take them.
Very well.
Okay, so you can begin to gain on these 5 in the unfortunately very open terrain of Rohan, as like morning begins to dawn. You can like follow them, and it will be obvious to them that you're following them very quickly because of the nature of the landscape.
Because Cineric knows this land so well, he can probably choose the best time for us to sort of break and start the chase. So it's hardest for them, and we can catch up the best before we hit the hard terrain.
Yes, I think you have a good chance, but they will see you. It's just impossible that they wouldn't because of the way the landscape is. It's just open. There's no trees, no nothing. It's just this open sort of expanse. But by the time that they do see you, you can hear them shouting to each other in this foreign language. And they begin galloping, and you can gallop after them. Now your horses are going to be faster than theirs because, as I say, their horses are all armored. It's just like their way, these heavy sort of cataphract-like cavalry. And they'll like begin running as fast as they can. They'll sort of quickly get into bow range, and we'll roll initiative.
Dice rolling? What?
I know. I was like, oh, we're gonna do it in dice now. I see.
Oh, damn it.
Oh, that's a good one. Because we're in wilderness, remember, we get advantage on... Or is that the normal ranger? No, it's the first round of attacks have advantage.
bow range. Caius, you ready for use your new toy?
Oh, why do you think I've been so bloodthirsty?
Just making excuses to get into a fight.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'll say that you are 120 feet from them, which is as close as you're able to get at the moment. Though their horses are 10 feet lower than yours, if you are running after them. And you can see there's 5 of them, and like they're calling to each other and shouting, obviously trying to devise some sort of plan as they're galloping. But Cynric, you're the first.
1 second, sorry. Okay. So pulling the great bowstring of his great bow from horseback, he will unleash 2 shots. I'm going to be going for the riders. That is 22 to hit the first one.
Yep.
And the second one's going to miss because it's like sub 10. Uh, 7, 9, 11. I think 11 damage.
Okay, excellent. So the arrow catches one of them, and he just keeps galloping as fast as he can manage. Avantha, one of the riders, will turn in her seat, and she'll like pull her own bow and fire expertly, like she's done it a million times, and she will fire at you, Cynric. It's going to definitely hit. It's a 19 on the die, and the second will miss. So she pulls once, and then like does this fancy maneuver where she like pulls quickly and fires again, but the second one goes wide. The first one, gotta get my dice. She'll use her archer's eye to do some extra damage. It's going to be 14 piercing.
Damn.
So this great shot of a fine bow will catch you in the shoulder as you're riding, and she'll keep going as fast as she can. Rosaran will turn in his seat, and he's going to fire upon you, Farah. Maybe miss both times. Does a 19 hit you?
My AC is now 19, so
just.
Yep.
He'll do exactly the same. He'll do exactly the same damage. So he'll take 14 piercing.
Okay.
From him as well.
Ouch.
Because they're not messing around. It's your turn.
It is. Apologies. Faroth is basically galloping, trying to force as much speed from his steed as he can as he lets go of the reins, draws back his bow and fires 2 shots. The first being a 26, the second being a 25, as I roll with advantage for my first round of attacks. 11 points of damage and 10 points of damage to the rider's horse that shot at me, please, if that's all right.
Okay. Yep. So you fire 2 shots, and they like one hits the horse in the flank, and the other like in the exposed back of the leg, and the horse like screams and whinnies and will like rise up, and the rider will be thrown onto the ground. The horse will fall, and we'll see if the rider gets out of the way. He actually gets a crit on that, so he's definitely not going to get fallen on. What a waste! Like roll out of the way as the horse like hits the ground and is screaming. And the other riders will just keep going and leave him there. And he will like pick up his spear and like hold it in 2 hands.
And Farrell's going to basically, to end his turn, he's going to narrow his eyes as he lines the reins to ensure that he can ride this man down when he gets close enough.
Okay, Baragond.
Baragond lets loose an arrow at the one who is injured by Cynric, and hits an armor class of 24 for 10 points of damage.
Okay, still up of his armor.
And he's just pressing. He's just hunched over the horse's neck, trying to keep up. He'll certainly be behind Siaru, but he'll be trying to keep up as best he can.
No problem. They gallop onwards. One of them will turn in the saddle. He's going to fire at one of the elves. And we'll hit once. So one of the elves next to you, you see Baragon gets an arrow in the shoulder, but continues riding without too much problem. Zenthas is going to dash. So he's gonna kick his horse and seemingly move faster than the rest. There's some sort of technique here he's using. Maybe it's the serious hitting he's doing with the spear onto the back of his horse, but it's moving faster. He can see that the odds are against him, so he's just going to run. Karam is going to fire backwards towards you, Baragon. Yep, so that is a definite hit and a 19. Does that hit you as well?
Yep. Yes, it does.
Okay. So the first will be 12, and the second will be 6.
I'll do the... With the first one, I'll do an uncanny dodge and sort of take less damage.
Yeah, so it would have been a great strike, but it just kind of grazes your shoulder as you move out of the way. Okay, and back to the top, Cynric.
So I'm guessing, well, we're all going at quite a pace, trying to get up there, but that one guy dashes away. What distance... roughly, do you think it's still within bow range, or?
So they would have moved, and you guys would have moved. You would be 10 feet closer.
Mm-hmm.
We started at 120, didn't we?
Yes.
Aren't we all dashing? But he's got some sort of special, because if you're on a horse, you can choose various actions, and I just choose for all dashing.
Yep.
But he's got a special sort of move, I guess.
Exactly. Yep. He chose to have like a fleet
bonus dash or something.
Yes. So that's what he's done. The rest of them are just moving at their normal horse dash pace. The horses are faster. So he would be an extra 60 beyond.
Right.
But we're 10 closer, so is it an extra 50?
50, yeah.
So that puts him at 180.
170.
170, sorry. Right? Okay. Can I attempt some sort of animal handling to speed Ciaro up?
Sure.
Don't know. I can roll and tell you what it is.
Sure.
That's at 27.
Okay, so I'll say you can do the same as he and move an extra 60. It'll be your action, to do that.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine.
So as you're racing across the plains, you see Cynric and Ciaro just like begin moving much faster than the rest of you. Some Rohirric trick, and he starts to gain on them. So you'll be 50 behind the riders at the moment.
Back riders.
Yes. Okay, so you begin kicking your horse forward as fast as you can. Uvantha is going to try and shoot at Faroth. Misses the first. Second's a crit. Luckily, you have that thing, right? Do you have a thing now?
I don't think I have a thing for that. I don't think I picked that up, did I?
Oh,
what was it?
It's the shield, but I don't think you're using it, are you? Not with
it's on my back, so yeah.
No good. Okay, so that'll be a crit then.
Oh shit!
Every time without fail.
It'll be 14 damage.
Yep.
And I should really have this open by now every time we play, but I never do. Serious injury rules. Okay, I will need from you a D10, please.
Just coming up. 4.
Okay, and then I'll need a D10, please.
5.
Okay, so the arrow whizzes towards you, and you are like galloping, and as you're like up in the seat, it cracks you in the head, like a maximum force. Just this doesn't go through your skull, but like cuts deep into your forehead, and like leaves this terrible gash, and you feel this like ring, and you are seeing stars. You'll have disadvantage on attacks and saves on your next turn.
Oh.
So there's like this deep cut in your forehead, and you can like for a moment you're like swaying the horse, but luckily you're strapped in. You do not fall. Rosaran is on the ground. He is bracing his spear, and that's what he's going. He's going to ready attack for whoever comes near him. He's going to get speared. And it's your turn, Farath.
Well, he can take his ready to attack because Faroth was like lined up his reins to attack Rosaron. So if I'm close enough, then he would have his opportunity to do so.
He will do so.
Only fair.
So the first one is going to be a 20, which will hit.
Yep.
But it'll do 13 damage. But the second is a natural 1. He like strikes up at you with the spear, and as he like pulls it back and tries to strike again, it like catches, or you like smash it with your sword, and it snaps the spear, the length of it, and he like throws the useless piece down to the ground, and he is disarmed. And it's your go.
And it's disadvantage at attacks, is it?
Yes. What were you gonna say, Dan?
Did you do the damage for the crit and the hit against Pharos?
Yes, he did.
What was the damage?
It was 14,
13. Oh, I thought you said 13.
Maybe it was 13. I don't know. Okay. You're up, Parath.
Yeah, so my first attack is a 19 at disadvantage.
That will hit him when he's not on a horse.
And the other one is a 14.
That'll miss.
Yeah, okay. So it's more luck than anything as Faroth swings the Flame of the North, but it's still seeing stars in his eyes as he strikes with the one hit, which is going to be a total of 14 points of slashing damage.
Okay. Pretty
He
brutal.
rides to him, yeah.
One of those Radlord horseman strikes upwards.
Yeah.
And it like knocks the strange sort of horned helmet off his head, and you can see a swarthy man beneath. And that was Faroth's turn. Beragond.
Beragond seeing Cynric taking off, and that he'll catch up with the. He guesses he's going for the one that's is going away, but he'll sort of be catching up with the other riders within a few seconds. He just readies his action to loose his arrow when one of the riders ahead swings out at Cynric. He'll loose his arrow to take the first one that swings at him.
Okay, perfect. Elran is going to turn in his saddle. He's going to try and shoot at Cynric. So you can shoot now if you want to, Beragond.
No, I'm waiting for
the
them
strike,
to take a
yeah.
melee strike.
Okay. He'll miss both times. The gallop is too much. His horse is starting to get gassed already from galloping in the heavy armor, and both arrows are like clumsy, and he misses both times. Then Zenthas is at the front. He is going to keep running. Yep, he'll do his thing again. He'll move.
Remember, if they have 10 less movement, they get 20 less movement when they dash, because it's compounding. So
That's
can't.
true.
I can't remember what the previous math was, but he can't. He won't be able to keep this up if I keep going.
He won't.
But
I don't think he knows that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yes, he won't be able to keep it up forever. So he'll move forward
unless their steeds are in Mithril as well.
They unfortunately are not. So he'll dash for 120, and then no, he'll dash for 100, and then so he moves 150 this turn. Okay, and Karam is going to see that, and he is going to turn his horse and ride towards you, Cynric, to try and let at least one of them get away. And now he's going to try and melee strike so you can shoot Beragund.
So I hit an AC of 24 for 28 points damage.
Oh my goodness. That I'll need a D10 from you, please.
That's Just a second, sorry. 6.
6. Don't know offhand. Let me check. Might be stunned. Might not. You think I'd have this list memorized, wouldn't you? Use it, like.
I think we would as well, but no.
Here we go. 6. Cannot take reactions, has disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks. Okay.
Pretty decent.
Pretty decent, yeah. So he is like galloping towards you, Cynric, and then this arrow just like right into the middle of his chest, and he kind of stumbles. He's going to try and stab down at Ciara with his spear. Disadvantage. I shit you not, that is 2 natural 20s. That's insane.
It was unbelievable.
I've never done that before, ever.
I have done it the once.
Oh my god.
Oh my goodness.
Right, that's something.
So I totally put the armor of El Farazan on Ciara so she could ignore the hit. I'm joking.
It's a little tighter around the chest. Okay, so that's a D8.
Oh, it's a 20, isn't it? It doesn't matter. I was going to say I could do, I had that shield trick that I could add it to her defense, but it makes no difference.
Have you got?
Embrace
Can
it.
you do? Can you take blows for your horse, or is that only the in normal D&D, not in this?
There's a feat in D&D that lets you do it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have that as a Rohan.
It's probably not in this game.
Nope.
No, I think we made up something that I could add my shield to her armor to try and keep her alive, but not that. I don't think. I mean, I would possibly willingly do that, but
I don't know.
It defeats the purpose of aiming at the horse somewhat.
Yes. Okay, here we go. Mercifully low. It's going to be 7 + 3, 10.
Alive.
And then Ciara's going to have to suffer these crits, right? She's a character. Do you want to roll them or should I?
There's an awful lot of pressure, isn't it? What dice we roll in?
A D10.
So he's been rolling low.
Okay.
Level 20 I just rolled.
Apart from the 2 20s.
Okay, let's do this. That is 5. Exactly even.
Okay. In combat and another D10. Yep, this is probably not the worst it could be.
3.
3. Okay, so she suffers a level of exhaustion.
That doesn't affect her move. It only affects her rolls and her ability checks.
Okay, so the spear that this rider levels, like shoves into Ciara's shoulder, and you hear her like scream, and like it's the force of the impact as they're both riding, and he like rides past basically and lets go of the spear, and it sticks in Ciara, and that's going to be his turn. That was his attack. You rolled it with disadvantage. That's insane. So that's his turn. That was Karam. Okay, Cynric. He's still basically in melee with you.
Sure, but Was it disadvantage for the round or his attack? Like, oh no, he can't take reactions. There's no opportunity.
No, so you could just ride on
Yeah.
if you wanted.
That was my plan. I just blast right past him.
Okay.
Although, like, there is a furious look as I'm riding her at ridiculous speeds. That I would end a man who would do that to my horse. So if I go another...
You'll go 120. You'll be 30 behind him if you go and do the thing again. Sorry, actually, because if you do the extra action, you'll go 160.
Right.
180, sorry, right? Isn't it? 60, 60, 60.
Yes.
So you would be actually 30 feet ahead of him if you did that.
So if I just normal speeded it, I could get a bow shot.
You'd be 30 feet behind him if Sierra dashed, which is not your action, yes.
Yeah. So if Sierra dashed, I would be past the main group in front of them.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'll do that. So I imagine there is almost like, the whole swan kind of arrowhead thing, and this guy is getting away in front, and the others are riding, and they just see me dashing like beside them, almost, and then overtaking them. And I imagine the looks, and while I'm doing it, I'm just pulling the bow, and I'm going to shoot. I kid you not, I just rolled a 20. I'm shooting at the horse. Is what I was going to say before I interrupted myself.
Glory.
The second attack is a 19.
Yeah, those will both hit the horse.
Okay, time to pay back, I guess. That is 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 damage to the horse from the crit.
That's going to kill it. These Easterling steeds have 15 hit points instead of 12, as your average horse does. But even so, the Easterling war steeds, this one is felled by these two arrows that will find chinks in the armor and smash into the horse.
Well, can I shoot the other one at the other guy, or just
you need both otherwise? Because you said 17 total, right? And you said you shot the horse. So
that was 17 from the first hit, the crit. I didn't even get on to rolling the damage for the next one. I can use both shots if you want.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So he's bear in mind he's like dashing.
Yes, he's tumbling for sure.
Great speed.
I'm gonna see what happens here. That's a natural 1. So he absolutely bottles it. He's like trying to deal with that, but he's like tied into the horse, and it just like rears up and falls and crushes him. Basically, he's definitely got a broken leg as the horse falls on top of it with all its armor, and he's stuck there, unable to move. So that's Zenthas is unable to move. Okay, Avantha is going to turn on her pursuers. She's going to try and shoot you, Faroth, as you fight her friend. It's going to be a 16 and a 19. One of those will hit, right?
One of those hits, yeah.
It's going to be 12 piercing.
Okay.
Rosarin is weaponless. Did you kill him? No, he's weaponless. Well, spearless. He's going to pull a sort of curved sword, and he's going to try and swing up at you. Rob.
Go on, what is it?
It's a crit.
Yeah, I know it is. I'm like a crit magnet.
What are these Easterlings? This martial training that goes.
That's for me, not the horse. That's for me.
Yes. I mean, I guess you have been fighting orcs for a long time, and these guys are like actual soldiers, so maybe that's the difference.
Yeah, sure.
We've got lazy in comparison.
Yeah.
We have. In fact, trying to take Gundabad by ourselves.
He rolls a 1 and a 2 on his damage, so you'll only take 6.
I don't care about the damage. The damage.
Yeah.
Do you want to roll the crit, or will I?
No, you roll it, man. It's his attack.
Okay. It's a 2, which is the minor wound table. Better than the oh shit table.
It's better than the oh shit table.
And then the d20. Do you want to roll the d20?
No.
You insist. Okay. So the curved sword, he like grabs it in both hands and he just like slashes it at your thigh and like cuts in there quite badly. You have a weak leg. Upon a roll of 1 for an attack or a check, you fall prone. It's one that Dan is all too familiar with, I think, from the Rome game. So he like slashes into your leg, and you can feel like this like awful pain as it like glances against the bone before he like pulls it out and sprays blood onto the ground. That's going to be Rosaren's turn. Farath, you're up.
I think from the impact of the blow, because I've pre-rolled, so I'm basically ready. Farath is going to just hurl himself from the horse at the man like this. Oh my god, he just wants to kill him so badly. With a 19 and a 22 to connect.
That's about it.
Excellent. That is 12 points of damage for the first one and 16 points of damage for the second as I just fly out of the air.
Dealt with.
Oh, is he dead?
Yep.
Yeah, so the second attack, basically, the sword is thrust into the man's chest and he lands on top of him.
Very nice. Okay. Let's see. Baragond.
Baragond will...
So Avantha and Elleran are the two who are still on horses.
And Avantha and Elleran. Elleran is injured, isn't he? Isn't he? She?
Yes, Elleran is the one that you hit with the arrow previously.
And Karam, is he on the ground or not?
No, Karam is also on the horse, sorry. Yeah, he's still on the horse.
Okay.
Sorry, actually I'm wrong. Karam is the one who turned around to fight Cynric.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Elleran, I think, is still galloping.
So he's the first one I'll come across, Karam. And I'll loose an arrow at him as I ride up.
I'm dead, so...
Oops. But he's not engaged with anything. Hit an AC of 20 for 8 points of damage.
Okay. All right. It's permanent, Rob. Yeah. Yes, that was Elleran. Zentha, that was Baragond. Elleran is on the horse. He's going to try and gallop away again and shoot you as he does so, Baragond. Okay, so he misses the first, and with the second, he pulls the bowstring too tight and it snaps. As he rolls a natural 1. He'll put it into a saddlebag and like pull a sword, but keep galloping. Zenthas is crushed beneath his horse. That's what he's going to do. He's screaming pain at his broken leg. Karam is going to pull a sword and gallop towards you, Farath, and try and get you as he's riding by.
Come on.
So he rolls a 3 and an 18, both of which will miss, I think.
If it's 18 total, yes, he misses.
Okay. So he gallops and like slashes over your head and then like back behind him, but misses both times, and he'll gallop past you. Back to the top, Cynric.
So one dealt with. Karam has gone back towards Farath and Baragond. Elleran was, and Uvantha, they both keep going, so they're like roughly with me.
Yeah.
And probably with me as well then.
Cynric is ahead of you by a good bit. Well, he's ahead of you by, Jesus, I don't know. He's like around ahead of you, basically.
Yeah. I'm catching up on the others, but I haven't got there yet.
And I was in front of them. So yeah, we're sandwiching them. Which one is closest / more injured?
So Elleran is more injured. You can see that he has an arrow in his shoulder. Uvantha is unharmed. And for like sake of expediency, they're equidistant.
Sure. Okay. I will attempt to. I'm going to go after Uvantha. Actually, I'm going to try and cut the horse down.
Okay.
So what I'm hoping for is to charge in, and putting the bow away. I'll try lance the horse with my
Brutal.
new lance, and then
Yes.
try ride by, like disengage, so she can't catch CRO.
Okay.
Strike, and one is 22, and the other one is a 17.
Okay. 17. Actually, the horse will block, but 22 hits.
Sure, heavy armor. Oh, sorry, it would be a 17. It's actually a 19 because it's a +2 spear, which I wasn't counting. Because new weapons.
Yep. This like shining spear, bright in the daylight.
So I've got it in both hands as well because I want to pull the shield, so I get higher damage dice. So that first one is 14 damage from the first, and then like 10 or so damage from the second, but enough to
Gonna kill it.
the horse. Yeah.
Yep. So this brutal strike from the spear smashes into the horse as you gallop by. It's actually the force of it and of like Ciaru and all of the force is going to knock it like over as you ride past. It's going to like basically like turn to the side and fall over. Evanta's going to try and not get crushed, and she, of course, does.
Another crit fail.
It's 4.
Okay.
So it's a fail. So like they're in the saddle and like tied to them basically, you know, with stirrups and whatnot.
Sure.
So I don't like unless they roll high enough, they're going to get crushed basically. So she's under the horse as well, and that's basically her dealt with. And you could ride past, and there's no threat from her as you do so. She is going to try and crawl her way out from under the horse with an athletics. A total of 7. So she remains there. You can see she's like trying to push. Doesn't look like her leg's broken, but she is kind of under the horse. She's like pushing, but isn't able to escape. Rosaran is dead, I think.
No.
No, he's fighting Rob. He's fighting Faroth. Yep. It's your, so he's going to swing that sword at you again.
Oh no! Was that the one that you landed on, Faroth? I think he might be dead.
No. So Rosaran's dead. Yvantha was the one that swung in and went for me now, isn't it?
No, it's Karam.
No.
Karam who's going for you now.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, so Rosaran is dead.
Rosaran is dead.
So it's your turn, Faroth.
Yeah, so the one that went for me, Karen, basically, because Faroth is now dehorsed, he jumped off to attack the other man. So he, and I can't believe this happened because I did pre-roll. The man rides at Faroth at full speed, and Faroth brings back the Flame in the North and swings it for a stunning critical hit. However, his second attack is a 1, which means he falls over.
Already, you've just been wounded and now...
Straight away. So the critical damage, Lloyd, is 25 points of damage to...
Sorry, say it again?
25 points of damage to the man.
Okay. I'll need a D10 from you.
9.
Okay, no reactions from him.
Okay.
And he gets the crit.
Yes, and then a D10, please.
8.
He suffers a minor scar for the rest of his life.
Which won't be long, I'm sure.
Which won't be long, yeah. So you slash at him. Maybe it's like you're not used to the pain in your leg and you like unbalance with the insane strike and you like swing in the way that the sword like carries you with it and you like stumble onto the ground and you're like cut deep and he'll have that scar till the day that he dies, which I'm sure will be in a couple of seconds. Okay, Baragond.
Baragond is chasing down on Elleran, and he reckons that when Elleran gets to Cynric, he'll lose his arrow. He's doing the same tactic as before.
Yep, no problem. Elleran falls for the trap. He's moving towards Cynric and will engage. So you can do that.
I hit an AC of 27 for 21 points damage.
Okay, I'll need a D10.
And the D10 is 3.
3, I think, is dead.
I think like one is
Zero.
dead, two is
Stable.
unconscious, stable. I think.
Yep.
Something like that.
So it's this shot that hits him like in the chest, and he like is in the saddle, and you'll see him like slump forward as the horse continues to ride, though he is unconscious. So he won't attack Cyneric. He in fact will just sit stupidly in the saddle and ride up next to you. Zenthas is dealt with. Karam is the only really remaining warrior here. He's just been badly hacked and cannot take reactions, but he's going to try and end you, Faroth, with his final action. He's going to swing down at you with his sword.
Okay.
He misses one. The second is an 18, which I think also misses you, does it?
It does miss me, just managed to parry it desperately as he rides past again.
Yes. He's like riding around, he's like swinging down crazily, and you're like, oh, he has advantage because you're prone.
I'm prone. I just remembered. Do it again.
I mean, can you stand up at the end of your turn, or once you fall over, is that it?
It says...
With the injury.
It just says you fall prone.
I mean, I imagine you just fall over. You have to get up on your next turn.
Okay.
Upon a roll of 1 for an attacker check, your character falls prone.
Okay.
I mean, you said he's got a spear, right? So he can reach me even though I'm on the ground.
Yeah, he's using a sword, so it does kind of stretch the limits of what's possible.
Whatever.
You'll have the horse stab on you instead.
That's fine. No, it's fine. You can do all the attacks. It's fine.
Okay, that one's a 20 to hit, not a natural 20 from the horse. That one is a 16, which will miss.
Okay.
The horse does like 2d6 damage, right?
War horse for kicking, yeah, I think so.
Yep. You're going to shit a brick, Rob. It's 11 damage from the horse.
Which I will instantly revenge because that is a connecting hit. Faroth is going to swing back. It has to be against the horse, though. So
Yep.
That is 20. 20, exactly.
Yep.
So he's going to strike out at the horse on the ground, which is... 13 points of slashing damage.
D10.
10.
Yeah, that horse can't take reactions.
Oh.
So you stab upward into the horse and like slash at the back of one of its legs as it like brings a hoof down on you. That was Eleran's. It was Karam's turn. Cyneric.
How far am I from Faroth, Karam stuff?
I think you're quite far because Faroth stopped basically in progress. So you're probably... I mean, you could move it with a dash to get there, I think.
Okay. I am... just for style points, I think. Can I ride within 40 feet and then throw this glorious spear through the air, the Star of Battle, and into
insist that you do so.
Yeah. Okay. So he notes that the guy like slumped towards him, doesn't look entirely dead, but he's probably slid most of the way out of his saddle. He will be the one that will stay alive, and he will dash with a great speed from CRO, and 19 on the die, plus many.
Yes.
Hurling. That is 14 damage.
Yeah, so you throw the spear and it sails through the air with this insane force. It hits him. It's going to knock him out of the saddle and onto the dirt. And his horse will like continue trying to stamp on Faroth as it's been like told to do. Though the man is like knocked from the saddle and like down into the dirt with the spear sticking out of his chest, very much dead. At this stage, none of them are combatants anymore, and the horse can easily be like scared away or calmed, because Zenthas and Uvantha are both stuck under their horses. It's a success.
Faroth slowly pulls himself up from the ground, and he has to put his weight on his other leg, and he stares at Cyneric, who threw the killing blow, and he says, "Your homeland. Not entirely sure I like it." He's bleeding profusely, like he's very badly injured. He was very nearly killed in that fight. Just want to let you guys know.
Yeah, I bet that
You always
sounded
are.
awful
You
when
always are, though.
I like ride up to like pluck the spear out of the dead guy, and I go, honestly, I didn't leave it this way. And I guess I get to gathering up the two living. I suppose putting the spear to the neck of Uvantha or something until they, stop resisting.
She'll surrender, seeing that it's hopeless. And Zentas with his broken leg is like unable to do anything. And you can like gather them up. The living horses as well that they had like are fine steeds. And you can gather those. You can tie up the Easterlings and celebrate the victory or moan the loss of the use of your leg, Farrell. And we can question them next time, I think. It's been quite long, actually.
Yep.
So yeah, thanks very much, guys. That was fucking great. It's really nice to be back in Against Shadow again.
Yep.
Had a bit of a break.
Great session, man. Great session.
But yeah,
Yep.
Thanks very much. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.